Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I've got the enviable task here of keeping you away from a cup of tea and a slice of cake, so I won't hold you up too long. PolarX was put together about 18 months ago, and we have a project in Alaska with a high-grade copper-gold skarn deposit. However, what I'd like to go through today is we believe that's going to significantly increase in size and may in fact be just the tip of the iceberg of something significantly larger. I've just put this slide up as a little bit of a teaser. I don't expect you to be able to read anything here, but the image on the left shows the current resource. We've just completed a drilling program this year. As we've moved 350 metres further to the east, we're getting high-grade intersections of copper and gold. We move a further 500 metres to the east, we're starting to see significantly thicker and higher grade intersections of gold plus copper, and we've got some very interesting geophysical anomalies a further 3 kilometres to the east from that. There's very strong vectors here of increasing grades, thicknesses, and particularly alteration styles. So what am I going to talk about? I'm going to talk a little bit about exactly itself, the resource, how that may expand. I'll come back and talk a little bit then about why we believe this may represent something significantly larger, and then very briefly then just a little bit about the credentials of the team. Now, the image here shows the outline of our claim blocks. It's a contiguous block with about 240 square kilometres, all under Alaskan state mining claims. So permitting here, very straightforward, no federal jurisdiction over this land, nobody living on this land, no native corporation ownership within 20 miles of the project, so very simple from a permitting perspective. Just in terms of location, I know Alaska sometimes scares Australians that are used to dealing with flat areas and not familiar with using helicopters for exploration, but this project's very straightforward. It's a 6-hour drive from Anchorage. 95% of that is on good quality sealed road. It's only the last 15 kilometres where you need dirt road. That's an all year round, all weather road, and then there's a drill track into both Zackley and Caribou Dome on our tenements. The obligatory disclaimer, which I'm sure you've all read and can read on our website, and a little bit just on the corporate snapshot before we move on to the technical side. I'm not going to dwell on this slide, just to say that it is a tightly held stock. We have very strong institutional support from London in particular, but also Australia, and emerging support now from the US as well. Okay, a little bit back now, back to Zackley. So Zackley is a type of deposit known as a skarn. We have an inferred resource there that we published earlier this year, 3.4 million tonnes, at 1.2% copper, 2 grams gold and 14 grams per tonne silver. The cross-section on the left there just shows that this skarn is generally subvertical and it occurs at the contact between a limestone unit and a dioritic intrusion. The known inferred resource is about 1,000 metres long. You see that on the rotating block model there on the right-hand side. It was initially drilled in the early 1980s, no drilling since the early 1990s until PolarX drilled about a dozen holes last year to validate the database, put that into JORC resource, and this year we've just completed a drilling program of another 17 holes, looking to do drilling both underneath the existing resource and along strike, particularly to the east. So how do we get on? Well, so far pretty good. We've only had assay results for about half of the drill holes. We'll look at a few cross sections in a minute, but I'll just draw your attention to a few of those. So immediately underneath the Zackley inferred resource, our hole 18 hit multiple thick intersections, including 25 metres at 0.6% copper and over 1 gram per tonne gold. As we'll see from the cross-section, that's extended the depth extent on that particular section by about 100 metres. As we move further to the east, 350 metres to the east, holes 23 and 25, good high-grade copper and gold intersections. And then as we move further to the east, some very interesting mineralisation, which is much thicker, much closer to surface, and potentially amenable to open cut mining. So this is that particular cross-section. You can see there, on the left-hand side, you can see our hole 21, for which we're still awaiting assays, is the typical style of mineralisation we see exactly. It's subvertical, it's about 4 to 5 metres true width of mineralisation. But what we see in holes 20 and 24 is something in a very different attitude. This is sub-horizontal, pretty much at surface, and near true thicknesses there of between 45 and 55 metres at about 3 grams per tonne gold and 0.6% copper. We believe the geometry here represents fold thickening of the original limestone package and then mineralisation, and then there's been some fault translation. There's been no further drilling on this section or along strike, but with those thicknesses and grades, we have a firm view that with relatively limited additional drilling, this could very rapidly turn into a very interesting open pit proposition. The mineralisation here is very much a skarn. It is copper sulphides, or in this case largely oxidised to copper oxides, and gold. The gold has generally been seen to be relatively coarse-grained and free milling, so there's a good chance we'll be able to get some of this gold out, if not the majority, with gravity separation. That'll be subject to metallurgical test work during the northern winter. As we move a little bit further back now towards the inferred resource, our holes 23 and 25 with some really high-grade intersections of up to 3.5% copper and 2.3 grams gold. You may not be able to see the detail on the photograph there, but this is a very intense magnetite skarn, so it's something that we believe we'll be able to directly image with detailed magnetic surveying. And we have in fact just completed a 2,000 line kilometre, 50 metre spaced helicopter-borne ultra-detailed survey. We're just waiting to get the process data there to see if we can image this mineralisation. It's characterised by bornite and chalcopyrite replacement of relic bedding. For the geologists in the room with a keen eye, you'll see that there's crenulated folds there that are being picked out by the chalcopyrite. So it's something that the geologists get all warm and fuzzy about when they're logging the core. And then, as I said, as we move directly underneath the existing resource, we have had some very good hits this year. We've still got about another 6 holes that were drilled underneath the existing resource for which we're awaiting assays. But we would fully expect that the resource will increase later this year. We hope to get an updated resource statement out towards the end of the fourth quarter. That may or may not include the mineralisation that's 350 metres to the east, and certainly won't at this stage include the mineralisation which is 850 metres to the east. That requires further drilling, which we won't be now able to undertake until next field season. So that's exactly, that's a copper, gold, silver skarn that we believe's got significant upside potential. However, our view is that this is just the tip of a much larger iceberg. Skarns form when fluids from a felsic intrusive rock react with limestones. And we believe here that there is the potential to find a much larger mineralised system which represents the source of that mineralisation. The geology here is conducive to that. The regional setting's very good. We're just south of the terrain boundary between the Tintina Gold Belt and a major porphyry belt. That porphyry belt contains deposits such as Pebble, which is the world's largest undeveloped porphyry copper deposit, containing over 10 billion tonnes of ore at about 0.3% copper and 0.3 grams per tonne gold. So we know we're in porphyry territory. We're also where a major northwest trending structure intersects that terrain boundary, and in our magnetic data, which I'm showing here, we have a number of anomalies which we believe may represent porphyry-style intrusions, and they're characterised by a highly oxidised core, which is magnetite stable, so it forms a magnetic anomaly, and then it's often surrounded by magnetite destruction, where those fluids escaping from the intrusions react with the host rocks, convert any magnetite to pyrite, which you can then detect with IP surveying. So the next phase of work, for example, on our exactly southeast target, will be to do some IP survey, because as we saw before from the drill cross sections at Zackley, we've got a very strong vector in that direction to that exactly southeast porphyry target. If we overlay surface geochemistry on this, Exactly southeast does not have an anomaly on it, and the reason for that is it's covered by 15 to 20 metres of glacial till and is therefore blind. However, if we move 10, 12 kilometres to the west-northwest, our Mars target does have outcrop, and you see a very strong copper-gold anomaly there associated with magnetic anomalies. We undertook a little bit of IP work last year there, and 150 metres below surface there is a IP anomaly. However, we've now recognised that the system is probably a lot larger than we originally thought, so we would like to do further step-out IP work on that target next year. You can see the photograph there is just one of the outcrops at Mars. We have up to 7% copper and 2 grams gold in outcrop there. I'm certainly not suggesting that's going to be the grade of the mineralisation at some depth, but it does indicate that there is very much a live system here that requires further work. And just for the avoidance of doubt, there's been no drilling ever on Mars or exactly southeast. They are completely new targets waiting for, hopefully, a major discovery to come along. In terms of the team, I'm not going to go through the details there. This is in our presentation that was put out on our website yesterday, but there is a lot of experience in the team, both on the technical geological side within management, and then also the finance side and mine development side with our executive chairman. And then we're supported by technical services in Australia from the Mitchell River Group, of which I'm part. And then in Alaska, Millrock Resources, who formerly owned the northern part of the project and rolled that into our corporate transaction last year. They provide all of our field services. So they are an Alaskan-based explorer. They have 25 years of experience working in these terrains. They know all of the local contractors and consultants, and they've been a real pleasure to work with this year. So I'm not going to read these concluding statements, but what I hope I've shown is that we believe we've got an emerging Tier 1 project here. That's just exactly itself, with enormous potential upside. It's in a Tier 1 jurisdiction. A lot of that early exploration risk has been removed. We are seeing all grades of copper and gold mineralisation here. It just simply needs a lot more drilling, which we'll be getting back into as soon as we can next year. So thank you for your attention. The tea and coffee awaits you.